Part A questions 1 to 9a green. The first 538 form is used by international students in order to obtain permission from the Immigration and Naturalization Service to transfer from one university to another in the United States. If you are planning to transfer, remember that you must obtain the permission before leaving the university where you are currently studying. You must complete the Form I-538, have it signed by the foreign student advisor, and submit it to the district office of the Immigration and Naturalization Service together with the Form I-20 from your new school and the small, white Form I-94 that was affixed to your passport when you entered the country. Submitting the signed I-538 and other documents does not ensure permission to transfer. Only an official of immigration can decide each case. Students who have not completed one term of study at the school that issued them their first I-20 are not advised to file for permission to transfer until they have completed one term. Part B. The influenza virus. The influenza virus is a single molecule composed of millions of individual atoms. Although bacteria can be considered a type of plant, secreting poisonous substances into the body of organism they attack, viruses, like the influenza virus, are living organisms themselves. We may consider them regular chemical molecules since they have strictly defined atomic structure, but on the other hand, we must also consider them as being alive since they are able to multiply in unlimited quantities. An attack brought on by the presence of the influenza virus in the body produces a temporary immunity, but, unfortunately, the protection is against only the type of virus that caused the influenza. Because the disease can be produced by any one of three types, referred to as A, 8, or C, and many varieties within each type, immunity to one virus will not prevent infection by other types or strains. Protection from the influenza virus is also complicated by the fact that immunity to a specific virus persists for less than a year. Finally, because it persists for less than a year. Finally, because a virus may periodically change characteristics, the problem of mutation makes it difficult to carry out a successful immunization program. Vaccines are often ineffective against newly evolving strains. Approximately every 10 years, worldwide epidemics of influenza called pandemics occur. Thought to be caused by new strains of type A virus, these pandemic viruses have spread rapidly, infecting millions of people. Vaccines have been developed that have been found to be 70 to 90% effective for at least 6 months against either A or B types of the influenza virus, and a genetically engineered live virus vaccine is under development. Currently, the United States Public Health Service recommends annual vaccination only for those at greatest risk of complications from influenza, including pregnant women and the elderly. Nevertheless, many other members of the general population request and receive flu shots every year, and even more are immunized during epidemic or pandemic cycles. Part C. A geyser. A geyser is the result of underground water under the combined conditions of high temperatures and increased pressure beneath the surface of the Earth. Since temperature rises about 1 for every 60 feet under the Earth's surface, and pressure increases with depth, water that seeps down in cracks and fissures until it reaches very hot rocks in the Earth's interior becomes heated to a temperature of approximately 290 F. Water under pressure can remain liquid at temperatures above its normal boiling point, but in a geyser, the weight of the water nearer the surface exerts so much pressure on the deeper water that the water at the bottom of the geyser reaches much higher temperatures than does the water at the top of the geyser. As the deep water becomes hotter, and consequently lighter, it suddenly rises to the surface and shoots out of the surface in the form of steam and hot water. In turn, the explosion agitates all the water in the geyser memoir, creating further explosions. Immediately afterward, the water again flows. The deep water becomes hotter, and consequently lighter, it suddenly rises to the surface and shoots out of the surface in the form of steam and hot water. In turn, the explosion agitates all the water in the geyser reservoir, creating further explosions. Immediately afterward, the water again flows into the underground reservoir, heating begins, and the process repeats itself. In order to function, then, a geyser must have a source of heat, a reservoir where water can be stored until the temperature rises to an unstable point, an opening through which the hot water and steam can escape, and underground channels for resupplying water after an eruption. Favorable conditions for geyser exist in regions of geologically recent volcanic activity, especially in areas of more than average precipitation. For the most part, geysers are located in 3 regions of the world: New Zealand, Iceland, and the Yellowstone National Park area of the United States. The most famous geyser in the world is Old Faithful in Yellowstone Park. Old Faithful erupts every hour, rising to a height of 125 to 170 feet and expelling more than 10,000 gallons during each eruption. Old Faithful earned its name because, unlike most geysers, it has never failed to erupt on schedule even once in 80 years of observation. Part D. Wright Brothers. Wright Brothers. This question has often been posed: why were the Wright brothers able to succeed in an effort of which so many others had failed? Many explanations have been mentioned, but 3 reasons are most often cited. First, they were a team. Both into worked congenially and cooperatively, read the some books. Located and stored information, talked incessantly about the possibility of manned flight, and saved as consistent source of inspiration and encouragement to each other. Quite simply, 2 geniuses, or better than 1. Both were glider pilots. Unlike some other engineers who experimented with the theories of flight, Orville and Wilbur Wright experienced the practical aspects of aerodynamics by building and flying in hits and gilders. Each craft they built was slightly superior to the lost, as they incorporated knowledge that they had gained from previous failures. They had realized from their experiments that the most serious challenge in manned flight would be stabilizing and maneuvering the aircraft once it was airborne. While others concentrated their efforts on the problem of achieving lift for top-off, the Wright brothers were focusing on developing 3-axis control for guiding their aircraft. By the time that the brothers started to build an airplane, they were already among the world's best glider pilots. They knew the problems of riding the air firsthand. In addition, the Wright brothers had designed more effective wings for the airplane than had been previously engineered. Using a wind tunnel, they tested more than 200 different wing designs, recording the effects of slight variations in shape on the pressure of air on the wings. The data from these experiments allowed the Wright brothers to construct a superior wing for their aircraft. In spite of these advantages, however, the Wright brothers might not have succeeded had they not been born at precisely the opportune moment in history. Attempts to achieve manned flight in the early 19th century were doomed because the steam engines that powered the aircrafts were too heavy in proportion to the power that they produced. But by the end of the 19th century, when the brothers were experimenting with engineering options, a relatively light internal combustion engine had already been invented, and they were able to bring the ratio of weight to power within acceptable limits for flight. Part E. For the American colonies. In the American colonies there was little money. England did not supply the colonies with coins, and it did not allow the colonies to make their own coins except for the Massachusetts Bay Colony, which received permission for a short period in 1652 to make several kinds of silver coins. England wanted to keep money out of America as a means of controlling trade. America was forced to trade only with England if it did not have the money to buy products from other countries. The result during this pre-evolutionary period was that the colonists used various goods in place of money. Beaver pelts, Indian wampum, and tobacco leaves were all commonly used substances, for the colonists also made use of any foreign coins they could obtain. Dutch crania, Spanish, French, and English coins were all in use in the American colonies. During the Revolutionary War, funds were needed to finance the war, so each of the individual states and the Continental Congress issued paper money. So much of this paper money was printed that, by the end of the war, almost no one would accept it. As a result, trade in goods and the use of foreign coins still flourished during this period. By the time the Revolutionary War had been won by the American colonies, the monetary system was in a state of total disarray. To remedy the situation, the new Constitution of the United States, approved in 1719, allowed Congress to issue money. The individual states could no longer have their own money supply. A few years later, the Coinage Act of 1792 made the dollar the official currency of the United States and put the country on a bimetallic standard. In this bimetallic system, both gold and silver were legal money, and the rate of exchange of silver to gold was fixed by the government at the 16:1.